Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me today to talk about some Champions League, some midweek EPL, and even a little Europa League are my friends and colleagues, BJ Cunningham and Anthony Dabbundo. And before we get started, there has been a tornado in BJ's native Iowa, so if he goes in and out or we lose him for the show at some point, that's the reason why, but we're hoping we can get through it together, the three of us. Everything, by the way, is fine, we should say, in for BJ. He's totally fine, but for the internet. All right, on that note, we'll start with Liverpool and Inter Milan. This game is taking place at Anfield. Liverpool's odds on -180. Inter Milan plus 475. The draw here is 340. Liverpool won 2-0 in the first leg away at San Siro. So it's a pretty big hill for Inter to climb here. They're 12-1 to get out of the round of 16 and pull the upset. However, despite Liverpool being unbeaten in 15 games, they looked a little shaky against West Ham, I would say, and I think that some defensive regression is coming for the Reds. They're 7-0-0 in their last 7 games in the Premier League with just 2 goals against, but nearly 6 expected goals against. So I do think we could see Inter get on the board here. Anthony, what about you?
You know, I really wanted to pass here. And if we were dealing with like a 0-0 or if this were tied, I probably wouldn't play this because I really just have a fear of betting against Liverpool at Anfield in the Champions League. But I bet Inter in the first leg and lost. I still feel like that was a good bet. I'd bet it again. They only had 14 shots, Liverpool did, and only 0.7 expected goals. If you go back the entire season, 14 shots, they've only had 5 games all year. They've had fewer than that. One of them, they played a bunch of backups against Porto. And that's also the second fewest expected goals they've produced in a game all season. Both goals came off set pieces. Deserved win, you could argue, but I think Inter would be pretty hard done by to not get a point there. Total carries and passes into the penalty area were 12-11 in favor of Liverpool. Possession was pretty even. It wasn't like Inter was played off the park or outclassed or couldn't compete. And now they go on the road. They have nothing to lose. And that could play into Liverpool's hands on the counterattack. But Liverpool also just weren't effective at all on the counter in the first leg whatsoever. So I'm taking Inter +1 at -110. I think they keep this competitive. I think a draw would be perfectly fine for Liverpool to go through, and they'll take it if it's tied late. It's not like Liverpool is going to be pushing numbers forward to try to go win the match. They don't need to. And I think that definitely factors in. And Michael mentioned it. I mean, you didn't even count the League Cup final, which I'm still mad about. 1.8 expected goals for Chelsea. They hit 2 posts, missed multiple big chances. And then at the weekend, I mean, West Ham had an open net after a couple of bizarre sequences and really probably should have got on the board in that game as well. 1.5 expected goals. Liverpool's defense continues to never concede anything. Same with another team in the Premier League who's driving me nuts right now. But, I think Liverpool's clearly the better team. My numbers are actually pretty close, but because of the situational aspect where they don't need to win, I'm grabbing Inter +1 here. I also think Inter, they couldn't quite get Dzeko in behind against Liverpool's high line. I think they might make some adjustments, and they really found a lot of success in behind Alexander-Arnold with Perisic getting in there. I think they can definitely repeat that and go there and try to get a goal or two to cover.
Yes, this has been the kind of betting narrative around Liverpool all season, right? The price is definitely inflated. And that's across like all the derivatives as well. And it's, do you want to just square out and take the easy road, which hell, it might win, and it has won 7 times in a row for Liverpool in the Premier League? Or do you think maybe you betting the numbers? I think both teams to score -140 right now. It's a little expensive, but I was looking that way. And I think I'll end up having a piece of Inter on the money line, and maybe just a for fun little taste of the 12-1 to qualify, because I think there is something coming for Liverpool at some point, whether it's against Inter or a team in the Premier League. Someone's going to pay off at a big number against them, because they, even against Norwich City, right, they went behind, and then they did look shaky against West Ham. So I think there's probably going to be an opportunity here to cash in pretty big against the Reds. BJ, anything for you here before we move on?
No, I'm going to pass. If I played anything, I'd be with Anthony on on Inter +1. The problem I'm having with it is, yes, obviously Liverpool was a tad fortunate to win 2-0, but Liverpool's DNA is not just going to say, hey, let's just sit back and defend for 90 minutes and just play for a 0-0 draw. If you look back through Champions League's past, last season against Leipzig, they went up 2-0 in the first leg, won the second leg 2-0. Back in 2018-19, beat Porto 2-0 in the first leg, and then beat them 4-1 in the second leg. They're just not going to sit back and defend for all 90 minutes. Now, they might sit back and say, hey, we're going to hit them on the counter, but Klopp consistently in these type of matches still goes full press, full board, even though it is a 2-0 scoreline. So I'll ultimately be passing. Inter kind of weird form right now. They obviously, smoked Salernitana on Friday, but before that, they didn't score in 4 matches, but did create over 5 expected goals in those matches. Also, Nico Barea didn't play in the first leg because he was suspended. He will obviously be huge for Inter in the second leg. He's second in the team in expected assists and progressive passes. So definitely leaning towards Inter +1, but Liverpool consistently always makes me scared. So I'll just sit back and let Liverpool win 3-0.
The other game on Tuesday, both of these are 3 p.m. kickoffs on either CBS or CBS Sports or Paramount Plus, I guess it's called now. By the way, it's been great that there's been Champions League soccer in the middle of the afternoon on CBS proper. Soccer finally has arrived. But the other match on Tuesday, Bayern Munich, they are prohibitive -525 favorites against RB Salzburg, who are 13-1 on the 3-way money line. The draw here is 7-1. Bayern's -1200 to advance, Salzburg 7-1, despite the fact that these two teams drew 1-1 in the first leg of this fixture. Once again, just bears reminding, away goals has been chalked off from the Champions League rules, so it's just a straight up aggregate across the 2 legs. Bayern Munich's in weird form. They're 2-2-1 win, draw, loss in their last 5 in those matches. We're talking about the match against Salzburg and Leverkusen. Those both draws, and then they lost to Bochum as well in the Bundesliga. So it's not really a bad time to be going against Bayern Munich, I would say. Whether you want to do that with a team coming out of the Austrian Bundesliga remains to be seen. I think that this game, and it's a little square, has goals written all over it, and I don't mind going for like an alternate total. I thought over 5.5 at over 4-1, because I could see this game ending 4-2, 5-2, Bayern being able to cover that almost by themselves, or at least do the heavy lifting. So that's where I'm going to be looking. Maybe look at a little bit on Salzburg here. Anthony, do you see any path to success here for the Austrian underdogs?
I kind of do. I think people are overreacting a little bit to what happened in the first leg. Bayern went on the road and got a draw. They'll probably come home. They'll probably win this match. But that being said, I still think the price is a bit inflated on them. Salzburg has the recipe of a team who can cause problems on the counter and in transition, and that's pretty much what they did. I'm just not sure what's wrong with Bayern. I think there's a few things. One, early in the season, the numbers they were putting up were ridiculous. We talked about, they were like +2 expected goals per 90 different. That's just absurd. And it's probably hard to sustain that level of performance over a 38 or 34 game season plus the Champions League. And what we're seeing is just natural that, they're coming back down to earth a little bit, but it also could be personnel related. And this is where I think Bayern are kind of figuring things out. They played 3 at the back in the first meeting. They had no problems getting the ball through the middle of the pitch and getting it up toward the final third, the penalty area. But when they lost the ball, they were extremely exposed. And whether it was Adamu or our guy, Brendan Aronson, they had a lot of ability to run in behind and in the channels and get pretty much right through this defense, especially in behind the wing backs, because they were playing Coman and Gnabry as the wing backs, with then Sane coming in later in the game. So it's just a weird thing. And I think they tried to address it on Saturday when they played Leverkusen, because they know how dangerous Leverkusen is in similar ways up the wings. And they played 4 at the back. Omar Richards came in at left back, and then they played a 2 center backs with Upamecano returning to the team. And they still conceded a ton of chances, 1.8 expected goals. They've now conceded 8 in their last 6 in all competitions. And that includes matches against Greuther Fürth, Bochum, not exactly the top tier of the Bundesliga here, including, they did play Leipzig and Leverkusen. So there's something wrong with this defense. And I really think it comes down to Davies has not been there, and they don't have depth at left back. and Goretzka has not been there, and they don't have depth in the center of the midfield. So I think Salzburg can hang around. I'm fearful that this could get 2 or 3 if it gets late and Salzburg's pushing for goals and then Bayern just crushes them on the counter. But at 2, I'm going to take it because I just think it's a little inflated. And I think, Bayern's regression is real. I mean, they've only out created their opponents about 13-8 in the last 6 matches, which is not very Bayern-like. And I think we're going to continue to see them come down to earth. I'm very confident they are not one of the 2 best teams in the world right now.
Yeah, they have been playing like that too. That kind of take has borne out in the results. I think I'd be interested to see where the market goes here, because I do think a lot of people will be on Salzburg. Maybe not your casual fans, but I do think we'll see some money come in on the underdog here. And I know BJ, you're leaning that way. You're a sharp guy, so maybe you're the one to set the market.
Well, thank you. I'm with Anthony. I like Salzburg +2. If you look through the box score of Bayern versus Salzburg, you probably say, oh my gosh, Bayern pretty much dominated the entire match. I think a lot of it was indicative of Salzburg scoring first and early enough. They kind of sat back in their 2 little blocks and they just really tried to defend like hell and see the match out. And it almost worked, but Bayern ended up with 71% possession, but they did only create 2 big scoring chances, 2.1 expected goals off of 22 shots. Bayern usually averages around 3.5 big scoring chances per match in the Bundesliga. So Salzburg, we talk a lot about these smaller sides who are not used to having the ball in their domestic leagues and used to dominating some of their lower sides domestically. But Salzburg does play out of a 4-4-2. So at least they have that type of defensive structure and they can actually defend and sit back and try to hit Bayern on the counter. We've talked about it a couple times, but when these 2 teams met last Champions League group stage, Salzburg actually kind of dominated Bayern Munich in Munich in the first meeting. They created 3.2 expected goals compared to only 1.3 for Bayern, and Bayern somehow walked away with 3-1 win. But I think the most important thing here is Anthony hit the nail on the head. No Manuel Neuer, no Alphonso Davies, and no Goretzka is causing some problems. Obviously, Bayern has a lot of depth and they can replace those guys, but those guys are pretty valuable to what Bayern tries to do. As far as a projection standpoint, I only have Bayern projected at -1.3. So Salzburg +2 at even money is definitely a decent price. And I think the thing with Bayern is right now they're pretty much safe in the Bundesliga. They're probably going to win it once again. They have a 9-point lead over Dortmund, but Dortmund does have a game in hand. So you could see them putting everything all in here in the Champions League. But I'll be honest, Salzburg, just from the eye test, they looked really good against Bayern. So I'm all on the Austrian team here. So Salzburg +2 at even money.
Yeah, they're very young. They press. They can run for hours. They're not the kind of team who's going to run out of gas and let Bayern kind of just cook them in the last 20 minutes. Their profile of a team, pretty good defensive pressing team. I still have questions about the attack, but Bayern's been so bad defensively that I think they naturally can create a few chances. And I was pretty concerned. I mean, BJ and I both had Bayern over the weekend. That bet was dead. Even, they were 1-0. There was a fluky own goal. And then even then it wasn't great. Yeah. I mean, Leverkusen easily could have scored another 1 or 2 in the second half. So they're just, I'm not sure what it is, and I think, with Davies coming back, they'll get better, but just shoving all the good attackers on the pitch and then seeing what happens has not worked for Nagelsmann. So I'm interested to see what the lineup is. I think it's going to be interesting. They're going to play 4 at the back, 3 at the back. No matter what they play, I think Salzburg showed that they can compete in this tie.
Does also beg mentioning that Bayern, they're going to be priced as if they do advance, as the odds suggest that they should, they will be priced as one of the 2-3 favorites along with Liverpool and City for the quarterfinals. So potential opportunity to fade them in that round as well.
We'll see what the draw is.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on who they play if they get through. All right, let's move to Wednesday. Real Madrid, they're +160, hosting PSG +165. The draw here is +255 in Madrid. PSG won the first leg 1-0 on a Kylian Mbappe moment of magic, and that has pushed them to -300 to advance. Madrid is +225. I think for most of the season, we've been pretty harsh on this PSG team. I think it'd be fair to say that we thought they were a paper tiger. I think that tune maybe is changing a little bit. Is that right, Anthony?
I mean, they went out and had like three pretty mediocre performances and after the huge win against Real Madrid, right? They go and they play Nantes that weekend. They lose. They created 4 expected goals, lost 3-1. It was a bizarre hangover spot. Okay, whatever. They had a solid 3-1 win against Saint Etienne. Did concede first, struggled a little bit, then kind of clicked into gear in the second half. Then they lose to Nice over the weekend. A pretty flat performance, one of their worst of the season in attack, at least. And so now everybody, you say, okay, what's wrong with PSG? Or are they just kind of like in cruise control? And that's really the existential debate. I think last year there were legitimate concerns with PSG because they were in a title race and they weren't putting up good numbers in Ligue 1 and they didn't win the league. Now I think when you consider the form they had leading up to the match against Real Madrid and then how they played in the Real Madrid match, I'm okay with the fact that they had 3 subpar performances immediately thereafter. If you look at the choices Pochettino made in the first leg, 4-3-3, everybody said Messi kind of looked like he's over the hill. Well, he had 5 key passes, 11 progressive passes, was one of the best, ball progressors in the whole match. Paredes was unbelievable when you look at his numbers in terms of ball progression through the midfield. And Danilo offered a good amount of defensive work as well. So they kind of found the balance of, Verratti is one of the best all-around midfielders in the world. They found a balance that I think really bothered Real Madrid. The question is now, does Real Madrid come back and say, okay, well, now we're the team chasing the goal? In the first leg, it was easy for Real to sit back. They had 3 shots, 0.1 XG. Their only legitimate shot came off of a corner right before halftime. So they didn't need to score. They were achieving their result for the first 93 minutes. I don't know what it looks like when Real Madrid has to come out and play now, though, because I think PSG might just counter the hell out of them. And I think it could get really ugly for Real Madrid if their fullbacks are caught way up the pitch and PSG is all of a sudden able to do their PSG things. They did to Bayern last year. They did it to Barca and really did it to City in certain parts of that first leg. So I think PSG, I lean that way. I don't have a pregame play here. If Real scores first, I'm going to be hopping in on some PSG live to advance PSG in every which way. I certainly lean toward PSG. I'm not buying Real Madrid. I haven't, as much as I've been a critic of PSG through most of the fall, they've seen improvement. The Real improvement, it's there, but I still have question marks about them chasing here, where I think it could play right into PSG's hands.
Yeah, three wins on the spin since their loss to PSG for Real Madrid. 8 goals for, 1 goal against. The underlying metrics in those matches are good, but this is likely a pass for me. I don't hate the draw here. I think neither one of these teams is built to run away with this match, so the draw should always be in play. We'll see where that number goes, though. BJ, you are thinking goals.
Yeah, it was interesting, Real Madrid's game plan. I did not expect them to come out just basically sitting back defensively and just letting PSG have the ball for the majority of the match, given how bad they've really been defensively throughout most of the season. So now they're going to have to come out. They're going to have to play. And what was more shocking in that first one is that it's fine to sit back defensively and try to beat somebody on the counter. Like that's not a horrible game plan, especially against a team like PSG. But Real Madrid was just so sloppy in that type of transition. 58% of their possessions were in transition, but only 4% of them ended up in PSG's final third. And so basically they had 0 expected goals in transition, and Vinicius Jr., Modric, and Benzema combined for 0.09 expected goals plus expected assists. That is not going to get it done against PSG. So with Real Madrid having to come out and having to play essentially on the front foot for this match, Anthony hit the nail on the head. It's going to create PSG might just score 2, maybe even 3 goals in transition, because no Casemiro is incredibly vital for Real Madrid because he is the one who protects their back line. No Toni Kroos, that also is horrible for Real Madrid. And then no Ferland Mendy. So a lot of problems for Real Madrid defensively in this one, but at that same token, they've looked really good offensively. I'm curious to see what PSG is going to do in this match. My guess is probably sit deep and then look to hit on the counter. So my guess is this will probably end up being somewhat of an open match, with Real Madrid really having to be on the front foot, trying to get the ball into the box. I think we're going to see some goals, a lot of high quality chances at both ends. I have 3.3 goals projected, so I like over 3 goals at plus 110.
The other match on Wednesday is a pretty awkward one. Man City, they won 5-0 against Sporting Lisbon in the first leg. And so this one's done and dusted still, even with a B, maybe C squad coming from Man City. They're minus 650 favorites at home. Lisbon is 15-1 at DraftKings right now. The draw is 8-1. I saw Sporting as high as 20-1. That was at Caesars here in New York. I'm not gonna pass on that because there's no imperative for, and this is a debate we can have all the time in these spots, with what good does Pep get out of risking any players here at all? They're in a title race in the Premier League. They have nothing going on here. So if I was him, I would play the U23 side. They're not going to lose 5-0. So I'll be taking a bite on Sporting 20-1 on the money line, or if it goes higher, good for me. BJ, you look beside yourself.
He won't do that though. That's the crazy part, is that they're up 5-0. He's not going to do that. He might rotate, like he might bring in like Ake or something. He might play Raheem Sterling instead of Jack Grealish, but it's still going to be a pretty A squad for Manchester City, which makes absolutely no sense, but he's still going to do it. They have Crystal Palace coming up this weekend in the Premier League on the road, which is a pretty big match for them, especially in the title race. So you'd think maybe play Cole Palmer, maybe play some of the other, like you said, the U23 guys, but that's not going to happen. So I'm going to give this match a big ol' who cares, and I'm going to move on to another one.
Anthony, anything for you here?
Yeah, I passed. Easiest pass on the board. I mean, look, there's a great game. Real Madrid's going to play PSG, and there's some Europa League on Wednesday. Watch that. Don't watch this. I mean, look, from a betting point of view, I've been anti-sporting, and I'm still anti-sporting, so I don't have any interest in betting them at all, no matter what the price is. Now, if the lineup comes, but the thing is, by the time the lineup were to come out, and then the market starts, you're going to miss out on
that's why I'm
good
saying
number, which is to Michael's point, right? You grab the number now, and okay, maybe City does play Cole Palmer, and Ederson doesn't get the start, and Ruben Diaz has got an injury, so he's out for a while now. So like there are some things where City where you're like, maybe they're a touch overvalued, but like BJ mentioned, in the same sense, it's like, okay, we're not going to play Jack Grealish today. We're only going to play, Riyad Mahrez and Phil Foden.
Gundogan instead of Kevin De Bruyne. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly. So no interest for me in betting this match.
You said it, right?
City, we're getting ready for the draw. Let's see who we get in the quarters. It could be good.
If you are betting Sporting, like you should just do it now, and because the bet is it's basically a 3-leg parlay of, will Pep play his reserves? Will Sporting play there? Because why would they risk players too? Will they play?
I still think it's an away day in the Champions League at Man City. Like you're going to give it a go,
right? But I'm just saying, like this is what you're betting on, right? Like I think they will too, but you're betting on that, and then the third leg, of course, is them winning, which will be the trickiest part. But that is it for the Champions League for Tuesday and Wednesday, but there is some Premier League 2 as well on Thursday afternoon. We'll start at Carroll Road with Norwich City, 11-1 on the money line, hosting Chelsea, minus 370. The draw here is plus 475. Norwich City, God love them, gave it a real go a couple weeks ago. It looked like, hey, maybe they will get out of the relegation zone, or at least make a scrap of it. Doesn't look that way anymore. 0-4 win, draw, loss in their last 4 Premier League matches, 12 goals against, 2 goals for. I'm not really looking too much into their FA Cup with Liverpool, because I think it would have behooved them to lose that match if they are truly trying to stay up. And they haven't created over one expected goal in any of those matches. The schedule, not the easiest: City, Liverpool, Southampton, and Brentford. That Brentford game is the one I'm looking at the most here, because they just did not look good. I know Dean Smith was talking about the refs a lot, but I thought Brentford was a better team, full value from start to finish. And Chelsea surprised us all by going to Burnley and pulling out the win so easily. It was 0-0 at halftime. Chelsea ends up winning 4-0 in a really, really impressive second half up there at Turf Moor. I'll be passing on this one pretty easily. I think this is a weird matchup. Don't really think Norwich has a chance. Chelsea looking better of late, I think we could say. So easy one to to look away from for me. BJ, anything for you? Canaries and the Blues.
Yeah, happy to pass on this one. The last time these two teams met, if you remember, it was a 7-0 drubbing by Chelsea, but I think they created only around like 2.8 expected goals. It was basically like the peak of the Chelsea overperformance. But now, like you said, they've been looking a little better. It's an easy pass for me. At Norwich, what is it? 1 goal for 30 against the top 7 this year. So
and Anthony thinks that they're going to score again here.
So yeah, like it's an easy pass. I'll let Anthony tell everybody how. I don't know how, but how Norwich is going to score a goal.
So if you guys are, loyal listeners of the pod, we appreciate you. 2 weeks ago, Norwich went to Anfield. They were plus 130 to score. And in the first minute of the game, I still was pulling up the TV, but I got the flash score thing where it says like big score. And I'm like, oh my God, Norwich scored in the first minute. Like, this is the greatest day of my life. They ruled them offsides. So I'm like, all right, well, now there is no chance we're scoring. And I'm watching the game the whole time. And I'm like, nope, no chance. And then they get a deflected goal. And I screamed. I mean, it was incredible because no longer can we say that Norwich has not scored against any of the big 6 in West Ham this season. They now have 1 goal. They only had about 0.7 expected in that match against Liverpool, but you know what? We'll take it. It was a beautiful cash. The number is not there for me on this one. They are plus 110 to score. I would need plus 120, 130 to think about it. If it gets to that, I'm going to play it because, again, I mean, how could you not watch the first half at Burnley and think, man, Chelsea's really been getting a let off here. I mean, missed an open net. They were discombobulated at the back, and they refocused at halftime. They turned on the Jets. They scored 4 deserved winners. Good performance from Chelsea. But I'll be honest, I was watching the first half, and I was like, Burnley, I didn't have Burnley, but I was thinking like, man, Burnley really is going to score here. Wonder who Chelsea has next. So I went on to my FootMob app and I said, oh, Norwich away. That's going to be a good price for a little Norwich team total over. Again, the price isn't there, but it's close. And don't be surprised come Sunday or Saturday or Thursday if you see me put Norwich team total over a half. If we get like plus 120, I'm going to play it and it's going to suck. But I think Chelsea's defense continues to just outrun this regression mania forever. They had a period where they were conceding like a goal every game in December and January. And I think their attack is clearly better. I mean, Reece James has made them better. Kai Havertz is really playing excellent right now. Pulisic, Havertz, Mount is just like an awesome front 3. And I think their attack's going to improve, especially with James back. But the defense still has problems, I think. So we'll see.
Southampton are even money favorites at home, hosting Newcastle United plus 270. The draw here is plus 260. Newcastle, man, 5-3-0 win, draw, loss in their last 8 with a plus 7 goal differential. The 4th most points in the Premier League since Boxing Day, despite playing fewer matches than basically everyone in that span. The Eddie Howe revolution, and Newcastle, it looks legitimate. I didn't think this was going to be.
I think we were all wrong.
Yeah, I didn't think this is how it was going to go. But I mean, he's getting some really good performances out of players who, out of nowhere. Joe Linton is kind of the poster boy for that. They were, I think, a little fortunate to get away with the win against Brighton. It was basically a coin flip. On the other hand, Southampton, they were pretty poor against Aston Villa. I thought this was going to be a pretty good opportunity to, once again, sell high in Newcastle and maybe buy low on Southampton. But that didn't seem to be the case with the number. Even money on Southampton, not that enticing. If it does get up there, I'll be on it. But BJ, you think the Saints are still worth it?
Yeah, you can find some plus 105s, plus 110s out there for Southampton. Like you mentioned, I think this is just a really good buy low, sell high spot for both these teams. Obviously, Southampton coming off that dropping by Aston Villa, but it really wasn't as bad as it seemed. Aston Villa capitalized on a lot of their counterattacking opportunities, but Southampton ended up holding 62% possession. Their pass per defensive action was around 8.2, and they still created close to 1 expected goal. So while Newcastle, like you mentioned, their 2-1 win against Brighton wasn't that convincing. They allowed Brighton to hold 68% possession. And Brighton also had 32 touches in the penalty area compared to only 17 for Newcastle. So Newcastle's obviously been on this good run. They've gotten out of the relegation fight, but their underlying results are telling me a little bit of negative regression is coming. So if you take out if you go to their last 6 matches, you take out the match against Brentford where they were up a man for 80 minutes of the match, They have a +5 actual goal differential and only around a +2.2 expected goal differential. So, and this matchup against Southampton, there are some worrying signs here for Newcastle. They don't play well through pressure. In fact, since the January transfer window, Newcastle's offensive pass per defensive action is around 8.4, which is fifth worst in the Premier League. So I'm guessing they're probably going to struggle quite a bit against Southampton's frenetic pressing. When these two teams met earlier in the season, I know circumstances have changed pretty big since then, but Southampton did completely dominate them. 3.6 expected goals, only 1.4, and were really unlucky to draw 2-2. Southampton also much better at home than they are on the road, plus 5.3 expected goal differential at the St. Mary's Stadium versus minus 7.6 on the road. So I like the Saints at plus 105. I have them projected at minus 115, so a little bit of value on the Saints money line.
Anthony, I think if this game was played 2 months ago, it would have felt like an auto over. But now, weirdly, with Eddie Howe, who's known as a let's say defensively ignorant manager, and Ralph Hasenhüttl and Southampton have been kind of they feel like an over team as well. You're still thinking under now.
It wasn't that long ago. Southampton was, underperforming their expected goals, couldn't finish a chance, languishing at the bottom of the table. Felt great about my under point total. Times have changed. And I think the market's really changed. I mean, you're almost you're over 2 3/4 here. It's closer to 3 than it is to 2.5. It's a little high, not quite high enough for me to go under, but that would be certainly the look. Newcastle's attack has improved for sure under Eddie Howe, but it just feels like the kind of game where when you look at the fact that Southampton has run ridiculously hot, I mentioned it last time, 21 goals from 15 expected in 10 games, now 11 games. It's well above what you'd expect given the talent level, almost 2 expected goals a game. There is going to be some regression coming. I still have them power rated as the 14th best team in the league right now. And they're sitting up there in 10th, so I'm not quite a believer in them, but I'm also not really a believer in Newcastle either. And when that's the case, and both attacks have been creating and scoring a lot of chances, there tends to be a natural under situation. But again, BJ mentioned it, stylistically, there was almost 5 expected goals, I think, in the first meeting. So it's a pretty concerning matchup perspective, with Southampton causing problems with their press and then conceding chance at the other end. They just play these frenetic games. It's almost like a Bundesliga match in some ways. And so that scares me to play the under here with them right now, with the way that their games have been going. So I would lean towards the under, but if I can't get 3, I'm probably not playing. Need 3.
Roy Hodgson and Watford. It's hilarious what he's been doing with them. For the first 22 games of the season, as we noted, 0 clean sheets for Watford. Since then, he's got 3. And that is just in 7 matches. So good for Roy. It's fun to watch him do this. Watford under Hodgson, 1, 2, and 4 win, draw, loss, 4 goals for, 10 goals against, 7.1 expected goals for, 8.74 expected goals against. So an actual market improvement on defense for Watford from where they were under Xisco and Claudio Ranieri. Wolves, on the other hand, Wolves are funny to me because there's only a few teams in the Premier League who have drawn fewer matches than Wolves. They have 4 on the season. I think there's 3 teams with 3 and then a bunch with 4, and they play into such a style, or their games have had have been such draw friendly environments. 1.74 total goals per game in Wolves matches, which is the lowest in the Premier League by half a goal so far this season. And still no draws in their last 9 matches for Wolves. They're 5-0 and 4 win, draw, loss with a +2 goal differential and a -4 expected goal differential. I think Watford hangs with them here. Hodgson's defensive improvement does seem to be legitimate. The question is whether or not they'll be able to score enough to keep themselves hanging around the Premier League past this season. And I think that's a legitimate question. But I think in this match, they shouldn't have too much of a problem, considering this Wolves attack is a little bit toothless this season. So I'm going to take a shot on the draw here. I think just like I was mentioning with Real Madrid and PSG, which is a very similar matchup as to Wolves and Watford. I just don't think that the draw will ever be out of play here. A 0-0, 1-1. is definitely not out of the question. So plus 250 on the draw for me, Wolves and Watford. BJ, anything for you here?
No, I'm happy to pass here. I have Wolves projected at minus 107. I can't figure them out. Obviously, it was a nice cash Crystal Palace this past weekend, but Watford, man, they still had a lot of leakiness against Arsenal on Sunday, and that worries me if this Wolves attack ever decides to show up and play up to the level of their talent. But I'm happy to pass on this one. Maybe potentially looking at both teams to score if we can get it at plus 110, plus 120, maybe. But other than that, it's a pass for me.
Anthony, BJ didn't want to say my two favorite words.
Yeah.
There's no way you're sitting this one out, though.
No, absolutely not. I'm on Watford plus a half. Wolves, finally, right? The regression is coming. 3 straight losses, 3 straight deserved losses. They almost stole the result against Arsenal. It pained me. The fan in me, the Tottenham fan in me, was pained by that last second goal that Arsenal scored. But the analytics person in me appreciated it because it was so deserved. And I'm tired of this Wolves team. I'm fading them into oblivion. And I'm going to continue fading them. I faded them against Palace, and I'm fading them again here. I can't get to the number either. My numbers make Wolves plus 130. So I've got Watford minus 130 to get a point. I can get them at minus 115 right now. Minus 120s are out there. So not a huge value play, but again, with the regression indicators for this Wolves team, again, they actually overperformed defensively, conceded 2.6 expected goals if you include the penalty. Palace had the same number of shots. And this was at Molineux, where again, Wolves are bottom half of the table. They're 14th in expected goal difference at home. Watford's the much more desperate team. And I was pretty impressed by Watford's performance today. Arsenal, credit them, had a couple of really great attacking moves to score their goals. It didn't feel like Arsenal were totally dominating the match. Watford consistently looked dangerous on the counter. They had a few chances that I thought, they could have taken and really made this game in that match more interesting. And they almost did equalize late, scoring a late goal in like the 86th minute. Great play from Moussa Sissoko, but really an encouraging attacking performance, well over 1 expected goal. I think they can counter effectively here against Wolves and this Wolves attack. I mean, 1.4 expected goals their last 2 matches against West Ham and Palace, who are above average defenses, but not great ones. And Watford, I think it sets up perfectly to sit deep, make Wolves try to beat them. Wolves probably can't do that, and then hit them on the counter and steal a goal here and maybe even win this match.
Oh man, Roy Hodgson.
I do not like the over, for the record.
Well, I'm glad you clarified. Glad you clarified that one. All right, let's wrap up the Premier League slate for this week with Leeds United. Jesse Marsh's Leeds United. They're plus 180, hosting Aston Villa plus 155. The draw is plus 245. This is another Thursday afternoon kickoff. How about this for Leeds? 2.14 expected goals for. Only 0.36 allowed in a 1-0 loss to Leicester City over the weekend. That is as unleads as it gets. I think
it is the best expected goal differential of the season in any match.
They lose.
Wasn't it their best defensive performance as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and they find a way to lose it. That is
5-year contract extension for Jesse Marsh right away.
Well, I guess that begs the question, right? Like, I like Leeds. I know you both like Leeds. I like them on the money line at home to get the job done. Are we reading too much into just one game from Jesse Marsh's tenure at Leeds and the defensive improvement in that game, which was going to come? Like, there was no way this team was that bad defensively and was going to continue to play that bad defensively. But I also think that Aston Villa is the type of team, even if Leeds, if there are some growing pains defensively for Leeds, Villa's offense isn't the type to really take advantage of that. So I don't really fear going against them, especially on the road with the team that can score like Leeds. So I'll take the Peacocks plus 180. BJ, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned it. Only 0.5 expected goals allowed, only 7 shots to Leicester, 19 for Leeds. Really, really dominant performance. I think the main reason for that is because Marsh switched them to a 4-2-3-1, provided a lot more defensive structure instead of this, man pressing type system with a lot of openings for the opponents. The weird thing, though, is Leeds' pressing numbers weren't really that successful. Only 25.6 pressure success rate, 11.2 passes per defensive action, which you could say is a tad concerning considering they had over 190 pressures, which is actually over the average under Bielsa.
However, they're going to have a much easier time pressing against Aston Villa, who is third to last in the Premier League in offensive passes per defensive action. And in that crazy 3-3 draw that they had against Villa, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, Leeds did have a 39% pressure success rate. So if they're able to press at some type of success rate near that, it's going to be a really, really advantageous spot for them, especially at home. They also looks like they're going to get Patrick Bamford back, which would obviously be massive for their offense, and maybe even Calvin Phillips, which would just be so huge for their defense to continue to trend in the right direction, especially playing in a 4-2-3-1, which is what he played at with the English national team at the Euros and was maybe one of their best players of the entire tournament. Aston Villa, yes, they obviously, smashed Southampton on Saturday, but it was the first time under Steven Gerrard that they've created over 2 expected goals. They're still only averaging around 1.15 per match. And with the improvements on the Leeds defense after one match, I think it's a really good spot for Leeds. I don't think they should be slight underdogs here at home. So, the thing with Aston Villa is they're comfortably in the mid-table. They're nowhere near the relegation fight. Leeds is desperate now. They need this. They need a result, and they need 3 points for this one. So, Leeds draw no bet is plus 105. That's where I'm going. I love the Peacocks.
Yeah, I think there's always that balance in betting, whether you were buying high on a team or are you trying to beat the market to actually where they're heading. And that's what'll be interesting with this Leeds team coming up. And like you said, this is all the motivation in the world for one side, none of the motivation for the other, and a team that, as you said, too, just doesn't really punish defenses. Anthony, make your case for the Peacocks.
Yeah, I mean, BJ mentioned it. These two teams did just play a few weeks ago. I was on Leeds then. I'm on Leeds again. I think the number's still wrong. Leeds have been much better at home this year than they've been away from home. They've just been pretty unlucky at home when you look at the expected goals versus actual goal numbers. Jesse Marsch continues the tradition of his teams not playing up to their expected numbers. This goes all the way back to Leipzig early in the year. The reason he was fired, yes, they had defensive issues. Yes, the players didn't like him. Yes, they had, stylistic, tactical issues. But the main thing, they just really underperformed their expected goal numbers, and they were much lower in the table than their actual results expected them to be. And they haven't really played any better, Leipzig, and they have shot up the table. Wonder why. I think Leeds actually showed that when you get rid of that man marking system and you play a little bit more controlled, that they can be a decent side. I think it's important to not man mark against this Villa team, because if you go back and look at the 3 goals Villa scored, 2 of them were direct counterattacks. 2 of them were Coutinho losing a man, Jacob Ramsey losing a man, and then them getting completely ripped apart. I think they'll be more controlled, much more able to resist these counters, better at counter pressing. Leeds, you mentioned the 39% press success rate, took the stat right off my notes. Absolutely a major key was pressing them and creating chances off of that and controlling the game. And that was at Villa. So I think they're going to be able to do the same thing here and win this match. I think Marsch gets his first win. I took them draw no bet plus 105. Fine with the money line as well.
Wonderful. So all 3 of us on Leeds United against Aston
Villa.
Grouper. It's a grouper on the Peacocks. Real quick, let's just touch on Europa League. You guys can just run down your cards in a minute or so. BJ, let's start with you. What do you got?
West Ham plus half a goal on the road against Sevilla. Sevilla, we talked about it a lot, but they've just been really underperforming for quite a long time. Since November 20th, a little over a -3 expected goal differential in La Liga. And so we can take a little bit of what they did against Dinamo Zagreb, because Dinamo Zagreb was in West Ham's group. West Ham did dominate Zagreb in the first leg, and then the second leg didn't really mean much. The 2 matches that Sevilla had against Zagreb, I mean, they were good, but I wouldn't say they were the most impressive thing in the world. It's a good number here, especially when we're looking at expected goal differential. West Ham's is actually getting pretty close to what Sevilla's is, and England is a better league than Spain. So I think you're getting a decent price. I have the match projected pretty close to a pick 'em. So the Hammers plus half a goal at -125 is where I'm going for one. And then the second one, real quick, Braga, Monaco, under 2.5 goals at -120. Monaco, best defense in France, only allowing around 0.8 non-penalty expected goals per match. Braga, very good defensive outfit in Portugal, allowing under 1 expected goal per match. So going to be a pretty cagey type affair. And that's kind of what you saw from Braga in their matches against Sheriff. They weren't that effective going forward on the counter, and even really holding a lot of possession against
the Moldovan side. So it's hard pressed to see how they're going to break down Monaco. So under 2.5 goals is where I'm going in Monaco and Braga.
And Anthony, you want to tell the people about Real Betis?
I do. I agree with BJ on West Ham. I have them even teams. I think England is better than Spain by quite a margin. I'm not the biggest West Ham believer, if you guys listen, but I do think Sevilla is probably the second most overrated team in all of Europe right now. When you look at their numbers, there's just not a whole lot to like about them. They're not creating shots at the same rate they always do. Their crossing has not been great. West Ham's pretty good at defending crosses as well. It's a big key when you're playing Sevilla. I think they get the point away from home, and then it's anybody's match when they go back to London. Atalanta is -120 to advance against Leverkusen. I'm probably not going to play the money line in the first leg, but I do think Atalanta's considerably better than Leverkusen and will go through there. A little bit of a concern with the man marking against Leverkusen in transition stylistically, but I think Atalanta controls large portions of that match. And then again, I'm just going to keep fading Real Betis, and I'm going to take Frankfurt plus a half a goal on the road here. I was hoping for so many different teams for Betis to play here, but I'm okay with Frankfurt. Frankfurt a little bit fortunate to not concede more than they have in the Bundesliga. But when you look at Real and in Spain, I mean, nobody's ever performing more than them. So I think regression continues to come for them. They were very lucky to get by Zenit. Very controversial call. In stoppage time, they probably shouldn't have gone through. At least they should have gone to extra time, and they were not the better side in either of the two matches. So I'm going with Eintracht Frankfurt plus a half a goal as well.
Wonderful. Let's move on to our favorite bets for the Champions League this week. The first second legs of the round of 16. BJ, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Real Madrid, PSG over 3 goals at +115. Real Madrid's game plan in the first leg was quite shocking and concerning to me. They really tried to sit back and really see the game out defensively and hit PSG on the counter, which is great, and that can work, but really sloppy in transition offense. That'll change in this match since they're down a goal. They have to come out and play offensive, which is going to open the match up even more. And that's also going to be a problem for Real Madrid defensively because no Casemiro, who is vital to their defensive transition, and also no Ferland Mendy, who's also a very big vital part of getting forward and helping out in the attack, and also defending on the right flank there, defending Messi. So that's also a problem for Real Madrid. PSG created close to 2.6 expected goals in the first meeting. Real Madrid creating close to 1.8 expected goals per match in the most defensive league in Europe. So I think this match is going to open wide up. I have around 3.3 goals projected for it. So I like over 3 goals at +115.
Anthony, you and I have our best bets in the same match, but they are a little different. For me, I like an alt total, a big price. Salzburg and Bayern Munich over 5.5 goals. That's +425 or a 19% implied win probability. The Bayern defense has been struggling lately. 9 goals allowed in their last 6 matches, and their underlying metrics suggest that poor defensive form is legitimate. Then you enter a Salzburg side that can score. They scored in 6 of 7 of their Champions League matches thus far, and including some of those matches include games against great defensive sides like Sevilla and Lille. We know Bayern could score at will, and we know that this match, it's 1-1 going into the second leg. So if Bayern goes ahead, Salzburg's going to have to open up to get that second goal or to get the tying goal, and that should open the floodgates at one end or the other. So I think that this game has goals written all over it. So I'm going to chase a big price, +425 on over 5.5 goals in Salzburg and Bayern Munich in Munich. Anthony, close it out.
Yeah, I'm going to go RB Salzburg +2 at even money. Bayern's had some serious issues lately, and it really comes down to the fact that they have key injuries at 3 positions that they are not very deep at. Center midfield, Leon Goretzka has not played in a while. Their expected goals numbers have taken a bit of a hit at both ends of the pitch since he's been gone. Left back, Alphonso Davies, also out for this match. They don't have great cover for him, and Manuel Neuer, the ever-trusting goalie, also out for this match. They've rotated between a back 3 and a back 4, trying to control transitions. It didn't work against Salzburg in the first match when they played a back 3 and had 2 attacking wingbacks. It didn't work when they played a back 4 against Bayer Leverkusen and conceded almost 2 expected goals, probably deserved to really, you could argue, lose that match over the weekend. And Bayern, the last 6 matches in all competitions, conceded over 8 expected goals. I just don't trust this defense enough to lay the 2. I'm happy to take 2 goals with Salzburg, who should be able to press defensively and stay in this game and score 1 goal to really make this a competitive tie. I do think Bayern goes through, but I think it's going to be more competitive than most are expecting.
All right, that wraps up another episode of Wondergoal. We will be back on Thursday morning to discuss the Premier League and the European domestic leagues. But until then, we wish you the best of luck on all your bets this week.